Good morning, everyone. Hopefully everyone's doing well, and thank you for joining this morning's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about FortiZTP, which is Fortinet's zero trust provisioning platform that allows for fast and easy cloud deployments of various Fortinet devices. So this morning, we've got myself. I am Wavelink's Fortinet enablement lead. I've got 5 years experience, Eki House certified. I've got NSE 1, 2, 3, 4, and also 7. They sort of come into the new exam structure. I've got a couple of the new exam structure badges as well. I'm SMB focused. My background is small to medium business. I came from the reseller landscape, so I sort of have a lot of experience in that background. And I've done everything from quoting all the way to pre-sales, and I'm now looking after all of our enablement programs for Fortinet through Wavelink. With me today, we've got Brendan again. Brendan, thank you so much for joining us. Brendan's excellent. He's got 9 years of experience. He's all the way from NSE 1 to 5, 7, and he's also done his NSE 8 written exam. So he has an absolute wealth of knowledge, and I'm excited to have him here with us this morning to talk about FortiZTP. And Brendan does everything all the way from small SMB all the way up to data center. So thank you, Brendan, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Today, we're going to go over what is FortiZTP for those that haven't used or interacted with FortiZTP before. We'll have a look at the supported devices with the platform and the different deployment options that you have available. And then we'll also touch on, specifically for the FortiGate, some of the nuances about FortiZTP. We'll also jump into a demo. Brendan's going to run through and actually do live a demonstration for us, deploying a device using FortiZTP. We'll also go in and have a look at the IAM users and some of the FortiCloud organization functionality that exists, because FortiZTP, as a bit of a spoiler, does support FortiCloud organizations, and it's an excellent talking point, especially for MSSP partners. Brendan will also then do a demo of what that actually looks like, so you guys can go in and see what that looks like and get a bit of a demo. Well, he'll then pass over to me and we'll do a little bit of discussion about the FortiZTP application program interface, or the API interface. And I've actually been doing some work on that during the week, and I've got it all working so we can actually do a demo of how to use the API subsystem for FortiZTP. With that, we'll then end on where to get some further information, and then a quick Q&A at the very end. Now, if you have any questions throughout any of the webinar, please feel free to put them through into the question section. Either Brendan or myself would do our best to try and answer the questions in that section. And if we think it's a really good question, we'll hold it until the very end of the Q&A section and answer it for the whole group to hear. Otherwise, before we jump in, just want to say thank you so much for coming along. Here at Wavelink, we want to make sure that we try and support you guys as much as we can. So we're doing our best to try and cover topics that are relevant. And we think this one is quite prevalent. Zero trust provisioning. We see a lot of partners wanting to deploy and move things away from manual administration. So that's why we thought we'd talk about, for this particular topic, FortiZTP. With that, let's just jump straight into the content. With that, I'll pass it across to Brendan.
Thank you, Kieran. Just waiting for the screen share.
There you go, Brendan, you should have presenting.
Sure do. So what is ZTP? So as Kieran alluded to, it's zero touch provisioning. So one of the problems that IT companies face today, well, sorry, not IT companies, but companies that have IT infrastructure, is that it's increasingly diverse. There's lots of different applications, there's lots of different hardware, lots of different solutions. So what Fortinet's trying to do is make it fast and easy to deploy their devices. And FortiZTP is how we enable that to happen. The businesses are currently struggling to keep up with this because there's IT shortages at the moment as well, and that's due to skills and staff. All the staff are hired, they're in jobs. It's a great industry to be in. So IT teams need more tools to help them do more with less, and that's the goal. So the shortage of cybersecurity professionals has grown to over 3 million unfilled positions around the world. So that is absolutely massive. And there's 400,000 in North America alone. So if you want to head over to the States, and there's heaps of opportunities over there, that's for sure. In saying that, there's also lots of opportunities here. And you just look on LinkedIn every day and you just see lots and lots of opportunities at the moment. So zero-touch provisioning with FortiZTP has revolutionized the onboarding and provisioning of units. Rather than using a CLI command to configure the devices, we can use the FortiZTP service to automate this. And we can do that with a single click. So it enables the deployment of the Fortinet security, networking, and wireless devices. So this is FortiGates, FortiSwitches, FortiAPs, FortiExtenders, with limited technical expertise because it is a click, and you'll see this shortly. Remote devices can also be assigned to a specific Fortinet management appliance or service. So we can assign it to FortiGate Cloud, or we can assign it to a FortiManager. And if you have FortiSASE, we can even assign some devices to FortiSASE as well. Devices can then automatically find their intended management interface without any touch of the box. The box just has to have internet access. So FortiZTP can provision these devices individually or in bulk. And this is done through FortiCloud. And we can change or remove the provisioning targets as needed. So if you have factory reset the device, we can, change its management interface based on where you need it to go. FortiZTP automatically loads the devices that are registered to your asset management as long as they're in the same FortiCloud account. And you'll see when I do my demo later, you can have multiple FortiCloud accounts in your organization. FortiZTP allows for filtering of provisioned and unprovisioned devices and hiding them as well. So you can easily see which devices you have already provisioned or are waiting to be provisioned. And if you just don't want to see them because they could be expired, they could be old devices, like, I've still got a 20C that's registered somewhere. You wouldn't use a 20C in these day and age because it would be vulnerable. So, you would just hide that unit. And the kicker, it's free. It is a fully included service with your FortiCloud account. So as soon as you register your device into your asset management using your cloud key, you can use ZTP. So what devices are supported and their deployment options? So here is a chart of the devices and where they can go. So FortiGate and FortiGate VM can be provisioned to date to FortiGate Cloud, FortiManager, and FortiManager Cloud. The FortiAP can go to FortiLAN Cloud or a FortiGate because obviously it can be managed by either of those two platforms. FortiSwitch can currently be provisioned to a FortiLAN Cloud, and FortiExtender can go to FortiExtender Cloud and FortiSASE. In FortiSASE, we use it as a thin edge. So, there's all sorts of different provisioning modes that we can use. So connecting FortiZTP to Fortinet devices, there is a workflow that we must follow, and it will just work out of the box for you. So step one, you got to register the devices. If the devices aren't registered in FortiCloud, they're not going to show up. We then need to provision the devices in ZTP. So we just go to the ZTP website and we can then select where we want to provision them to. And then you can power on and connect the devices. After the device is provisioned, it can be monitored and managed from that Fortinet management interface. So if it's in FortiManager, it'll show up in FortiManager and you can adopt it. If it's FortiExtended Cloud, you can then connect to it in FortiExtended Cloud and use the full tunnel to log into the extender directly if you want to. It is fully provisioned at that point. So once you've done that, the device will connect to FortiZTP. The device will then connect to the management platform, and then it will configure the device and test it. So you'll see that it is online. There are some provisioning quirks. So let's have a look at the FortiGate. So step one with a FortiGate, you're going to register it and put it into FortiCloud, as I mentioned before, and pre-provision the device to the FortiManager or the FortiGate cloud. When you power on the FortiGate, you have to connect it to the WAN port. Now, this is for the desktop models up to the 100F. The WAN port is configured to receive a dynamic address from your DHCP server. So as long as it gets an IP on the WAN port, it will connect and it'll work. You can then connect your LAN devices and then you can test it. The quirk with this is that if you have a 200F or above, the WAN interface is set to the IP address of 0000/0, and it will never receive an address. So you need to log into the FortiGate and set up your internet connection. So it's not quite a single touch, but it is a simple process. You just have to configure your interface. Once the interface is configured and it's got internet access, then the 200F and above will then communicate with ZTP and get provision just like the rest of the process. So now let's have a quick look at a demo. This is totally the wrong account. Where did my demo go? This browser window. Okay, so I'm logged in multiple times to the FortiCloud, so it just threw me off for a sec. So I have logged into my asset management already, and if we have a look here, we can see that I've got a few devices. So if we go to FortiZTP, you can see here that we've got 5 unprovisioned devices. Now these 2 devices, we don't actually have any more. So we can hide them if we want. So I'm just gonna hit hide. So now we can't see them. So now we can only see the relevant devices. Now for the FortiGate, I'm gonna hit provision and I'm actually going to provision it to my FortiManager. Now we've already configured the FortiManager in FortiZTP so it knows where it is and how to get to it. So if I hit provision now, it's now going to send that request off to the FortiGate and the FortiGate will then register with FortiManager. With my FortiAP, I'm going to provision it, but I'm at my FortiLAN cloud instance is actually in Europe, so I'm going to provision it to Europe. And for my FortiExtender, we're actually going to send it to FortiExtender Cloud, so I'm going to provision it there. Maybe it's thinking about it. The FortiExtender one we've actually not tested, so this is a live demonstration. Maybe.
Possibly not. I think we might stick to the other 2.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too. Anyway, so from there, I can then go to FortiLAN Cloud. Now you can see that I've got my devices here. There is a FortiAP, but the reason it's going to fail is because I'm in the wrong region. So I've got to go change FortiLAN Cloud account. Go to Europe. Then we have a look at devices. And I've forgotten which device it was. AP, provisioned. That's a 223 with 7482. 7482. I don't see it in here, Kieran, either. So it hasn't provisioned yet, is going to be my guess. Kieran, can you see why the AP isn't in ZTP or in FortiLAN Cloud? You must be muted.
Sorry guys, because we are running this live, I'm just going to quickly restart these devices because they don't poll every single second. They poll on every, I believe it's every 600 seconds by default. So I'm just going to power them off and back on, and that should kick them into checking in with FortiZTP.
The AP has actually come back. So the AP is just signed up and it's come under deploy devices, so we can see that it's deployed. So that one's worked. And now the FortiGate has shown up in the FortiManager. So I've now gone to the FortiManager that we pre-provisioned it to, and it's shown up under unauthorized devices, which is exactly what it should do. So from there, we can then authorize it. We can select our ADOM. So I'm going to send it to my FortiZTP ADOM and hit OK, and then it'll register and come online as well, assuming that Kieran didn't just restart it.
No, not the FortiGate, just the access point.
Fantastic.
And we're doing this demo live as if this was actually a customer and they've just plugged in these devices. We're actually running this off a 4G service to simulate an MDN service coming in. So you can see here, all I did.
The IP address.
Yeah, and all I did just to the left of me was I unboxed a FortiGate 60F, turned it on, connected in that 4G service that I've got, which is just like a Telstra Smart Hub device, plugged it into the WAN port on the FortiGate, and then that was it. Haven't touched it since.
Yeah. And there you go. So we can see that the FortiGate is online. We can see its IP address, and we can see the statistics. So from here, we could continue our configuration, or if you have the correct blueprints and devices already configured in your FortiManager, it can actually push out the configuration automatically as well. So that's what I'm working on with quite a few of our partners right now, is just simplifying that deployment so that Fortinet can do, sorry, not Fortinet, so that Wavelink can do the staging for you, so we can unbox it, plug it in, ZTP can auto provision it to the manager will then push out the config, and we haven't even logged into the device. All we've done is powered it on. From there, we box it back up and ship it to site. So that's a really good service that we provide. Let's have a look at this. It looks like the extender. Oh no, let's have a look at the extender. It didn't provision. Okay, well, let's leave the extender. So that's ZTP. You know, it's as simple as that. So obviously we tried to rush it by restarting it, but that's us trying to do it in as a live demo. So the next topic is IAM users and FortiCloud organizations. So FortiZTP supports 2 access roles for IAM. So there's admin and read-only. So you could have read-only users or you can have admin users. FortiZTP supports specifying an IAM user folder permissions as well. So I'll show you how you can structure your organizations and you can apply permissions to those folders.
An example of the permissions just before. So when Brendan was logging in and he was showing you those assets that he has access to in ZTP, that's actually my master account. And I've probably got about 25 devices in my account, but I've restricted his access to just a folder within my account, and I've just put those 5 devices in that folder. So Brendan could only actually see and provision and touch those 5 devices. So that's actually an example of where you can utilize using folders within your FortiCloud account to limit someone's access to just particular devices. Sorry, Brendan.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. Thank you, Kieran. So FortiCloud supports organizational units. This is a new feature from, I think it was September it came out. It might have been August. Either way, it's new this year. It's currently in beta, but it is largely tested and it does work quite well. And I've got this set up and I'll demo it to you today as well. It does require a FortiCloud premium license. So once you've activated that premium license, you can then enable organizational units. So I will show you a demo of it, which is the other account that I was logged into. So first things first, you have to go into your account settings, which I'm probably logged into the wrong account, so I'm not going to show you. And then turn on organizational units. Once you've done that, you can then go into organizations. Right.
It
That's
might have
because I'm
timed you
logged
out
in.
there, Brendan.
Yeah, it timed me out for sure. It's also because I'm logged into your IAM account and not mine. This is the challenge of using the same browser. Okay.
Maybe just go into a private tab. Yeah.
Exactly what I was doing. Incognito. So I'm actually going to log in as an IAM account because you need to log in as an IAM to be able to manage it. But it is a master account as well, so it has complete access. So when you log in, you actually get the tree of your organization. So I've got my root being Shadell. I've then got my master account, and then I've got a client with a sub-client. And now this test company here, which I didn't mean to click on, but I did because you can't highlight it. It's actually not a real account. So you can see here that it has a fake email account. So you don't have to have real FortiCloud accounts within inside your organizations. So if I go to organizations, this time it should work. So I can expand my Shadell. I can create a new OU. So I can add a sub OU, which is what client 1 is. From client 1, I can then add another sub OU. From client 2, 1.2, I can add another sub OU. There's no real limit here. Now, this is relevant for if you want to create permission profiles for just that part of your client tree. Inside my 1.2, I've created a new member account. And you can just fill in the details so you know who the account is. If you want to have a real account, you can tick this box and use a real email account. This account can then be used to register devices and have licenses assigned to it. I also have a second one here called Test Company 2 as well. So I have multiple tenants inside my OU. If I go back to my asset management, and because I'm logged in as a global user, I'm going to go to my root so that I can see all my assets, no matter which account they're registered to. And then if I look at my assets and scroll down the bottom, you'll see here that I've got like switches assigned to my global tenant, but then I have FortiClient EMS assigned to 1.2, which is actually FortiSASE in this case. I've also got a virtual FortiGate, and I've also got another FortiSASE instance assigned to my company 2. What's really good about the organizational units is I can click on an asset. I can select many, it doesn't have to be one, but I can then transfer it between accounts. So I might transfer it back to my main account. Now, once I do this, what it will actually do is on the FortiGate that I just moved, it says who the support account is registered to. It will now change that to be the new account. So you don't have to do it. It does it all automated for you. So if you're moving devices around or moving licenses around, you don't have to change your registration on devices. So that's really cool. Now, to set up your IAM accounts, so this is your identity management. We click on identity. I'm going to go into my master account because I want to control global accounts. There's two different types of accounts that we can play with. There is local accounts and organization accounts. If I look at my bshadel account, you'll see here that I've put in my details. If I go to user permissions, you see the permissions that are being applied to this account as well. But you'll see here that I've got the permission scope as an OU, and I've assigned it to my root. But I can edit this. I can't change it because it's already created. Also probably because it's my root account that I'm logged into. And then you can generate a password as well. Now, if I was to create a new user, I can go add new. Now there's two different types of users. There's an IAM user, which is an account that I'm using to log in and manage it, but there's also an API user. So an API user is required to be able to use the FortiCloud APIs. If I create a new IAM user, you put in the details. I'm just going to put in fake details for the moment because I'm not actually going to succeed with this. We can apply the same permissions as an existing user by ticking the box. Must be at least 3 characters, of course. But then on the next screen, we can select organization or local. Now, for some situations, you may need a local account, and we can assign that to each individual company inside of our organization. If we assign an organization, it could be anywhere in that client tree. So how I've got client 1 and then client 1.2, I could assign this user to just client 1, and then it'll have access to all the sub-OUs from there. And that's how you can see this here, right? So I can select where to assign the users to. So I'm just going to assign it to my root. We can then select a permission profile. Now I've got some pre-created ones here, which is allow all that I'm going to use. And this just gives me admin access to all the different portals inside FortiCare. Sorry, not FortiCare, FortiCloud. I just read FortiCare as one of the options. Now these are all individually configurable. So if we look at the permission profiles, I can create a new one, put in a description, put in a name, select the organization, whether it's organization or local. It could be local to an account or it could be for your whole organization. But then we need to add the portals that we want access to. So before, when I was logged in as Kieran's, he'd only given me access to to asset management, FortiZTP, and FortiLAN Cloud and FortiExtended Cloud. They were the only options that he gave me. And then he hit add. Now he could have given me read-only access to some bits of it. He might have given me no access to some bits of it. For FortiExtended Cloud, he gave me admin. FortiZTP gave me admin, and FortiLAN Cloud, he gave me admin. So these are all customizable to suit your needs. You know, some of these services you may not use anymore, like OCVPN is deprecated, so you may not use them. One thing I will point out, if you are using an organization account, you need access to FortiCare to raise tickets, but there is a gotcha. You can't use this FortiCare portal. This FortiCare portal doesn't work with IAM accounts, so you have to use FortiCare New Beta. It took me logging a TAC ticket to figure this out, and I got lots of questions going, why doesn't it work? Until they figured out I was going into the wrong page. So make sure you use this new FortiCare portal. It is a lot better than the previous portal. I think that pretty much covers up IAM. Yeah, you should use it just as an everyday as well to give access to more staff members as well. So rather than using the old method of, you know, going into your account and then assigning them delegated access that way, you should use IAM. It's just more granular and easier access. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Kieran to talk about the API.
Thank you, Brendan. All right, so FortiZTP application programming interface. This allows us to go in and do API calls directly into FortiZTP to do all the functionality that Brendan's just shown, but from an API level. So there's a lot of documentation. It's fully written out, explaining all of the API calls that you can possibly make and all the responses you would expect. It is limited to 2,000 calls per hour. If your usage goes over 2,000 per hour, the API call will fail and it'll give you a message to tell you, hey, you've gone over that limit. Unfortunately, there's no way of increasing that at the moment, but potentially, and I haven't checked this, but potentially if you reached out to Fortinet, there may be a way through a TAC case that they may be able to extend that potentially. Now, when you do the API calls, it's not just on an individual device level. You can do batches of serials at a time. So if you wanted to, in your system, you could do it on maybe a whole deployment of 40 APs at the same time. You don't have to do individual ones, which is really, really handy. And like I said, it's not limited to a sub amount of what you can do. You can do all of the functionality that you can do through the web portal, through the API, all the things from listing the devices and seeing their current status, provisioning the devices to a platform, unprovisioning the devices, taking them back and re-provisioning them to something else, and also, of course, being able to do things in bulk. And the great thing about this is because this is completely free and it's really simple in the back end, and we'll jump in a demo in a second and I'll show you, you can incorporate this into your internal platforms to help reduce your overhead and streamline your deployments down. If you've got some sort of internal process and platform that allows you to automate a whole bunch of your deployment, you can probably very easily introduce this into that platform and make it an even easier process for yourselves. So let's jump in and have a look at the demo that I've got set up for us. So I've got Postman running on my local laptop here, and this is just going to let us do some API calls into Fortinet's FortiCloud services. So the first thing that we always do whenever we do an API call to Fortinet is first we need to authenticate ourselves and get an access token. And that access token will allow us to actually do the GET requests and the PUT requests, make changes and get information about what's happening in the platform. And this is all documented online. But essentially what I'm doing here is I'm doing a post request to this particular location. And I'm giving it my username, my password, and a couple other details. And when I send that along, it will send back to me a whole bunch of information, but the one we're most interested in is this access token, and this will let us do API calls into FortiZTP. So I'm just going to copy that, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do a GET request, and it's going to be, hey, can you get us a list of the devices that are in FortiZTP for my account? So in the header of this GET request we're going to send, we need to put in that token. So I'm just going to paste in the current token, and this will authenticate us. And then if I send this GET request, we should see back in a second. There we go, status 200, okay, so this worked through. And this is a list of all the assets that I have in the FortiZTP portal, and what they're currently set to be. So we can see that FortiGate ruggedized that Brendan actually hid from the platform. We can see that's listed here. So we can see the serial number, the device type is FortiGate, and the fact that he has marked it as hidden. And we can see here, no other settings have been set on it because we haven't actually set it to be provisioned towards anything. If I keep scrolling down, we will eventually find that FortiGate. So this is the FortiGate that Brendan actually did the provision on earlier. And we can see here that it's currently set to be provisioned by the FortiManager, and then the details about what it was provisioned to. So the serial number of the FortiManager, and then the IP address, which is the fully qualified domain name. So this will let us go through, and for all the assets, it sends back the list of assets. Now, the great thing about Postman is you can actually click this visualize button here and it puts it into a nice table for us so we can see the list of all the assets. So before, when I talked about the fact that Brendan could only view some of the assets, here's an example. So this API account that I've set up has access to all my devices in my account. So you can see I've got a couple of FortiGate VMs, I've got another 60F, I've also got a couple of access points in here. There they are, the G series access points. So Brendan didn't have access to view those or edit them because he only had a limited access into my account. So this will let us get it, but that's great. But really what we want to be able to do is actually control whether we want to provision a device or unprovision. So what I'm going to do first is, because Brendan's already provisioned that FortiGate 60F, I'm actually going to go in and I'm going to tell FortiZTP to unprovision the device that Brendan had just set up. So first thing I need to do is update my authentication. And then in the body of the put message we're going to send, we can send it a whole bunch of data that allows us to do a thing. So what we're going to do here is we're going to send through a request and we're going to say for the provision status, mark it as unprovisioned. I'm going to grab that serial number of the FortiGate that Brendan provisioned, which is this one just here. And I'm going to paste it in as the device serial number. And then what I'm going to do is going to tell it for the provisioning target, set it to blank. And what this will do is it will unprovision the device from FortiZTP. And then I'm just also going to blank at the same time the controller IP and the controller serial number because they will no longer be needed because we're removing the provision status of it. So hopefully if I've done that all correct, we can click send. Status 200, okay, that means that that request had been sent through successfully. Now let's just make sure if I go back to my get devices, we can see here, it was provisioned to FortiManager. If we now resend that request to update it, as long as I did absolutely nothing wrong, there we go. So we can see now that we have successfully unprovisioned that FortiGate 60F. It is as simple as that. And then if we wanted to provision it, for example, we could take that serial number, go back to our put request. I'm just going to quickly grab the authentication key. Sorry, I've got these set up as different requests just because it's a little bit easier for us. Let me grab that serial number again. So in the body this time, instead of saying we would like to unprovision it, we're going to mark it as provisioned. We're going to give it the serial number of that FortiGate, and then we're going to provision it back to FortiManager with the serial and the IP address in there. And then if I send that request across, we got status 200 okay, which means there were no errors on the other side. Let's go back to our get and refresh this, get the latest list of what's happening. And where we can see now again that FortiGate 60F has been put back into provisioned and it's now pointing back to the FortiManager. Now, obviously, if you were to integrate this into your platform, you wouldn't have to do this all manually. It would all be automated for you. But the process of provisioning devices, unprovisioning and changing the provision status is really as simple as this. It's really not that complicated. There's not much to it. And as you can see, it's all in real time. It's really fast. So hopefully this inspires some people to have a look at the documentation and get interested in doing some of the API functionality for FortiZTP. Now, if you'd like some further details, unfortunately, material for the FortiZTP portal is a little bit light compared to Fortinet's other services and solutions, but there is a fair amount of useful information in the documents library, all about what devices are supported, how you go through and provision those devices, and some technical information. And at the bottom there, you can see there's an API tab. If you take that, if you click that, it will then take you through to the API documentation. There's also a really good solution brief. If you just type in FortiZTP solution brief, there's a really good page. Don't know why that moved on. There's a really good page and it goes through and explains in really good layman terms what the service is really useful for. So feel free to use that as a service, as a document as well. And then of course, we just talked about, there's a whole list of all the documentation for the APIs available on the Fortinet Developer Network. And if I can figure it out, I can ensure that pretty much anyone can figure out. It's really, really simple. Just keep in mind that there is that limit of 2,000 calls per hour if you are going to integrate it into your platforms.
Just on the FNDN network as well, if you need help accessing it or gaining access to it, because it does need 2 sponsors from Fortinet, reach out to us and we can get 2 sponsors to approve you.
Perfect. Well, Brendan, do you have any questions from the Q&A section that we can read out?
There was a question about our staging service. The question was around, can we do asset tagging and labeling of the FortiGates if we do the staging? And the short answer is yes. So when we unbox the device, if you give us the asset tags, if you give us colored cables, or we can supply the colored cables as well if you like, or instructions, we can package them all up in the box for you as well. It's not just limited to just opening the box, putting a config on it and boxing it back up. We can customize the boxes as well. And the service is pretty cost effective. So if you have a situation where you are doing a bulk deployment, reach out and we can give you a quote. It is quite useful because then you don't have to touch it.
I did see a question. I did see that we also had a question about the ruggedized FortiGates and how they don't come with a cloud key sticker. In that instance, what you can do is you can actually reach out to Fortinet customer service, give them a picture of the device with the serial number, and they can actually get that all registered correctly into your account. Otherwise, if you have a FortiDeploy key, we weren't going to specifically talk about this, but if you do have it through FortiDeploy, that will allow them to be registered to your account relatively easily.
Yep. There was another question about the 200Fs and above supporting a DHCP enabled network port. Kieran and I were talking about this literally 5 minutes before we presented on it. We're just like, gee, wouldn't that be a great idea? It's like, yeah, it would be great if Fortinet did it. But cross your fingers, we have no info on it. In terms of zero touch, it would be absolutely fantastic. It just is what it is.
And I did want to say as well, so this functionality, it is completely free. So it's up to you to figure out where the value is for the service within the company. So it might be a value for your technical team to reduce the amount of time that it takes for them to deploy devices, or you could use it as a sales technique. If your customer is set on setting up the devices themselves and they just want to purchase the devices through them, then you can say, look how easy it is to set up these devices that you're purchasing. You've got this FortiZTP platform and it allows you to do that zero touch. So you just turn it on, tell FortiZTP to deploy it to that particular platform, and then it's there at that particular platform. So really the value is however you would like to market the value to be as well.
And talking about, doing the staging and zero touch and stuff like that, if you do need technical assistance in making that all possible, reach out. That's what we're here for. We can guide you through the process. We can give you the tips and tricks on FortiManager to make all that happen because we've done it before. So reach out and we can support you on it.
Yeah. The last question I can see in here was a really good question about is the ZTP feature limited to certain versions of firmware? Now, as far as I know, FortiOS has supported it since 5.2.2. In fact, it was supported in 5.2.1. It just wasn't enabled by default in 5.2.1, but everything since 5.2.2 will have ZTP enabled as the default. And obviously, the FortiGate 200F and above, it's technically enabled, but you need to tell the FortiGate how to get to the internet, which is why we generally say just set up DHCP on an interface and plug your WAN network in and off you go. But anything since 5.2.2 will work. On the FortiGate, on the access point, extender, and switch side, I'm not entirely sure. Brendan, are you aware of which versions support ZTP?
Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but I would assume that anything in the F series would be ZTP out of the box, with some caveats because some of those products might not have internet access, depending on your firewall rule. But if you're putting like FortiSwitch into FortiLink mode, for instance, then you know, you wouldn't provision it to FortiLAN cloud; it would go to the gate. So yeah, it really depends on your situation.
And I should say here, we were doing the access point demo on a FortiAP 223E. This is a relatively old model and it does support ZTP. So this functionality definitely goes back for a fair few versions of the products. And if you'd like to know specifically what version it is, we're more than happy to reach out to Fortinet, find out what it is and to let you guys know.
A question that just came in is, do we require cloud services license for ZTP to work? The answer is no. So out of the box, the Forti devices come with a short FortiCare support period. This is to cover things like DOA and you know, just basically technical challenges out of the box. So using that and FortiZTP is completely license free. So as long as the devices are registered in FortiCloud, they will be FortiZTP capable.
In fact, this access point doesn't have any support on it, hasn't had support for the last year. So that's a great example.
That was exactly what I was about to mention as well. I'm sure that AP had no license on it, and I was still able to provision it into FortiLAN cloud. And I'm pretty sure we were also using the free version of FortiLAN cloud as well. Kieran does not have a license for that. So we were using the free version all round. So there was absolutely zero licensing purchased for this demo.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that wraps it up, Kieran.
Perfect. Well, look, if you guys have any questions, please at any time feel free to reach out, either myself or Brendan. Sorry, my next slide isn't showing on me. There we go. So we've got one last webinar for this series. We've got the FortiExplorer app that's coming up in, I believe, 2 weeks' time, which should be really cool. We're actually going to go through and do a setup of a Forti extender, and I've got a brand new FortiGate 90G that I'm hoping we can actually get running for the FortiExplorer webinar, and we'll show you all the ins and outs of the app, and we'll actually show you how to do provisioning of the devices from the mobile app, which is really cool. So if you found this interesting, please do register and come along for that. Otherwise, you know, reach out to our account manager or our pre-sales team. We're happy to chat more and actually go into your environment and show you in your environment how to do this. I would definitely recommending to you guys, you know, once you've done one or two, do as many as you can internal demos, gain that first-hand experience with FortiZTP. We've got demo and POC units. If you don't have a FortiGate unit laying around in your office to test this process on, reach out. We're more than happy to give you a temporary demo unit just so that you can do the testing. You know, the API access is there. The API access is completely free. I'd highly suggest if you have some sort of internal programmer, integrate the FortiZTP into your management tools using that API platform. Make it as streamlined as possible internally for yourselves. And then finally, you know, once you've got that all in hand, it helps you to sell that converged Fortinet security platform and reduces your overhead and potentially as well from a sales perspective, gives you that little bit of leverage over the other vendors. Thank you guys so much for coming on and listening to us for 54 minutes. Hopefully you got a lot out of it, and hopefully we'll see you in our upcoming webinar. Thank you so much for coming along.
Thank you, everyone. See you on the next one.